Okay. Wow. Hello, everyone. I can see some messages here. Got people from everywhere, it seems, USA, Germany, in the UK. So, yeah, just welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining today on your Saturday. And yeah, my name is Julie. So, I am a trauma therapist and life coach. Um, and today we're going to be talking about self-coaching tools. So, yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, welcome to anyone also who is new. Maybe it's your first World Childless Week, I don't know, or maybe you're a regular, but whoever you are, welcome. And not sure if you've had a chance to watch any other webinars, but yes, like Steph mentioned, this is 4 of 6 today. Like, how fantastic is that? So many resources as well from across the week. So, please do, watch them on catch up if you get a chance. There's so many different types of ones. But today we'll be talking about self-coaching tools. So, yes, as I mentioned, I'm trauma therapist and life coach. I do see childlessness, let's say, through a trauma-informed lens, um, which means I do consider childlessness, involuntary childlessness, to be traumatic, really. And what is trauma? Trauma really is anything that happens that overwhelms our ability to cope. And quite often, not for everybody, because everyone's experiences are different, but I do think that involuntary childlessness can be considered as traumatic. And I know, of course, there's a lot of talk around grief, and in particular, disenfranchised grief. I know that Jodie Day has done a fantastic talk on that, which you can find online. Um, and in itself, grief is also a type of trauma. So that's kind of who I am. Um, Looking at self-coaching tools. So, one of my big things, I suppose, when I work with clients, and maybe it's not the best business model to send your clients away so they don't come back, but something that I really strongly believe in is empowering people, and empowering yourself really to have, tools and techniques that you can use day to day, really, not just, not everyone has access to be able to go to a coach or to go to a therapist. I mean, that's the ideal scenario, but that might not be realistic or practical for various reasons. So, yes, I'm a strong believer in empowering oneself to have a whole host of tools and techniques, like your little toolkit or your big toolkit, even, and always finding things that work, exploring new things that work or may not work, or insight into different things that can equip you day to day and whenever you need them. So what are we looking at today? This self-coaching. I'll also be talking about and show you as well grounding techniques as well. um, so yes, we'll be looking at a grounding technique. We'll be looking at two tools specifically to use when self-coaching. And we'll also look at three areas, perhaps, that are quite relevant to childlessness, with some ideas, perhaps, for addressing certain areas in our lives. So, just to say that, fully aware that some of the things you may be familiar with already, some you may not. Some things may work, some things may not. We're all individuals and different things work for different people. So it's really a matter of, trying things out. And it's all a journey about learning, as it were. Um, what else about coaching? I don't know if anyone has had coaching. I mean, coaching is extremely powerful. It can be very, very powerful. In the context of childlessness, um, it kind of fills that gap really, and gives us a sense of moving forwards and moving forwards in a positive way, or being able to see, a positive future, something that's so important because, of course, if we've imagined a life that doesn't work out for whatever reason, including childlessness, it can be quite hard to visualize a different life. So in this sense, the coaching element of being able to create, let's say, positive future, things to look forward to, a different life path, can be extremely powerful. And also just to say, I suppose, that coaching can be even more powerful when it's used at the right time. So just to mention, I said about, seeing things through a trauma-informed lens. sometimes we need to obviously process our traumas, our sadness, our grief around certain things before we can actually move forwards. So if we try to perhaps jump ahead too quickly and plan too many things when we haven't actually processed things from our past or certain, emotions and things, it might be quite hard to move forward. So coaching definitely has its place. I wouldn't say that it's the only fix necessarily, but as I said, everyone is different. Different things work for different people. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the only fix from healing from childlessness. I do look at things, with in a kind of integrative way. So I do personally think that it's nice to address all areas. So past, present, and future. So the past would be doing things like, healing kind of traumas or processing grief and sadness. The present element would be really, working on things like, grounding tools and techniques and, how to manage your present day to day. And then addressing the future would be that moving forwards bit. And really, it's nice to find a balance, balance of all three. To be able to move forwards with childlessness. But having said that, there might also be people that have processed, a lot of grief, sadness, things that have happened in their past, and maybe they are just ready to focus on coaching. As we know, it's not a linear journey, healing, coaching, life is just not linear. So we might think, oh, yes, I just want to engage in some coaching. But along the way, there might be elements of things that come up which might hold us back in some ways. So, we might be planning to do something, then we might find we hit stumbling block. And that might be because of, for example, I don't know, a limiting belief that we hold or something that we haven't processed from a past, in which case it's quite good to just take like a step out of the coaching journey, maybe process that and then come back into coaching. But yes, the other thing is about coaching and moving forwards and being able to really create like a positive visualization about the future is because there's something else that happens too, and that's, bringing trauma back into it as well. It's quite a common experience for people that have gone through trauma to have, well, a symptom or an experience, as it were, something which is called a sense of a foreshortened future. So what is that? It's really how, one's sense of future is impacted greatly. So it might impact someone's beliefs about the future. You might end up having very limited expectations about the future. You might not be able to visualize any type of future at all. You just can't imagine seeing yourself in the future, or you might imagine a future that's very, very bleak. So this sense of foreshortened future, which is quite common amongst, people that have gone through trauma. And I think it's probably quite a common experience if you've anticipated a certain type of future which isn't going to happen. So in this way, moving forwards and coaching and creating a visualization about the future can also be particularly helpful in terms of involuntary childlessness. So that's kind of the other thing that I wanted to say as well before I go on to talk about the tools. Toxic positivity. I'm not a believer in toxic positivity, and I do think it's really important as, childless people, we have quite a common experience of being quite invalidated. And I know that we have enough people having said to us, oh, just be positive, just be grateful for the things you do have, you know, just try and be positive, don't be negative and all the rest of it. And I think I don't know if anyone has um, gone for any coaching, maybe with someone who, maybe with a coach that hasn't really understood about childlessness. But I think coaching could come across as a little bit invalidating in that way because it's just all about forward thinking and being positive and not addressing these things which some people might label as negative. Actually, they're not negative. It's just a normal part of help. It's a normal response to traumatic situation, to grief, to sadness. So completely normal. So, two tools. Now, what I was going to do was I was actually going to share something here. I'm not sure if I can share it, but maybe you can also make notes if you have pen and paper or on your phone. The first thing is sometimes we might feel overwhelmed and think about, where do I even start? Where do I even start? So yeah, if you do have a pen and paper handy or you want to make a note on your phone, I will also I will also upload some resources after this webinar and I shall post it to my Instagram page. Perhaps I'll do that cheesy thing of, link in the bio or whatever it is, following on from this webinar with a couple of templates and resources you can use. But something to look at maybe to give you a start where to begin. There are templates and there is a coaching tool you can use called the Wheel of Life. So some of you might be familiar with this already. Now, the Wheel of Life is basically what it says on the tin. It's a template with just a wheel on it. But the idea is, are our wheels rolling smoothly? Or is there somewhere in that wheel where we're like bumping? We don't have a smooth ride because there's so many different areas in our life of that we might want to work on. And those areas might include, for example, our home life, our life purpose, our, I don't know, self-development, travel, education, health, physical health, mental health, um, whatever it is. There can be so many different areas in our lives. So I suppose one of the first things is really to make a list of all of those areas and just, to reflect on those areas and think, if you were to rate, um, life purpose, 0 out of 10, how satisfied are you with your life purpose? 0 out of 10. If you were to rate travel, some people maybe travel is important for them. How happy are you with your situation about, going on holidays or traveling or whatever? So just making a list of, your main areas of life, basically, of where it's important to you and rating them, 0 to 10. What's important? What's more important for you to resolve right now? What's least important? And maybe just making a list of areas and then just taking each area, I suppose, one by one and trying to think of a plan. And I suppose the other tool is um, now, there's lots of different tools actually you can use for this. There is a classic coaching model called GROW, GROW, but the one that I want to talk about is SMART. And I know that this can be used like in offices and corporate settings and marketing and things like this, but I still think it's a useful tool to have. So it's just literally SMART. Now, unfortunately, I can't share this with you because it won't give me the option to share it from my desktop. Let me just try it again, just in case I have. No, not Dropbox, but I will give this to you after the webinar. Something to bear in mind then, once you've, let's say, got the areas of your life that you'd like to work on, you obviously want to make a plan. Now, the really important thing is for planning for self-coaching is to make things very specific. So if we're thinking about SMART, SMART, want to make SMART goals, the first letter, and again, if you've got, pen and paper to make notes, or maybe Google it on your phone if you're watching with your phone, you can see what I'm talking about in more detail. But the first thing is really to make something specific. Because if we say, for example, I just want to find my life purpose this year, or I just want to travel more, that's not a goal. That's an end goal. That's something that we want to do, but that's really like a wish or a desire. That's not really a goal. So yeah, the first very important thing is let's make things very specific. What does that mean? Does that mean I want to actually go on a holiday this year? That's specific. By next September, I want to have been able to go on a 10-day break. Maybe that's even just being at home, doesn't even mean traveling. So the first thing is make it specific. What is it exactly? Something that you can measure as well. So that brings us on to M. So something that's measurable. What steps are involved? You can't say, for example, today is the 21st of September, next summer, just want to travel more. Okay, let's just make it really specific. And also, what are the steps to get there? What do we need to do first? Maybe we need to decide where we want to go. Maybe we need to decide what budget is. Maybe we need to decide how we're going to get that budget. So, how are we going to measure these things and how are we going to know if we're on the right track? So, also making a plan of dates. When are we going to start doing this thing? When are we going to reassess it and check in? So we don't just have, let's say, an end date, because if you're like me and leave everything to the last minute, unfortunately, that's my neurodivergent last minute procrastination side, quite often you don't get things done. So putting steps in place and making it measurable and monitoring and checking in is also very important. The next thing, A, so we've got SMART, so we're on A. Is this goal actually achievable or attainable? What do I need for it to be achievable or attainable? Do I need to, even the simple things, do I need to check how many holiday days I have at work that I can take off, even if you're staying at home, for example? Do I have the budget? Do I have the funds to be able to do what I want to do? So achievable or attainable, um, what do I what do I need to do to achieve this? Do I need to take time off? Maybe it's a different type of goal. Maybe it's I don't know, maybe you want to study something. In that case, is it achievable? Will I have the time to do this? What do I need to do? I don't know. Could be anything. Then we have R, which brings us on to R, really. Realistic. Is it realistic? Is it relevant to you? Is it part of the bigger picture of what you want to achieve in life? Does it fit in with your, broader values and align with what you want to be doing? Or are there other things which might be more important? And then finally, the T, smart. Um, it needs to be time bound. So yes, we mentioned before about having steps in between, but we need a deadline of some kind. And it's not to say that this can't be changed. You might want to change it when you're kind of reassessing and checking in with yourself, but we need a kind of timeline, of how we're going to achieve this thing. So those are, I suppose, the fundamentals, the basics, I suppose, if you want to start doing, coaching by yourself and have an idea of where do I begin? Well, where you would begin first is really assess which areas you want to work on in your life. And they can be absolutely anything. You can even put areas in home, home improvements, sleep, life purpose, as we said, travel, self-development, education, whatever it is. Where do I begin? And then once you kind of know where you want to begin with, you want to actually then plan these goals and maybe work with something like SMART to literally work through step by step. So you've got a solid plan of action because you need something solid. Otherwise, if things are too generic and too broad, quite often they don't really go anywhere. So making things very specific. So those are two fundamental tools. I want to also look at some of those areas. Before I go on to look at some of those areas, something to kind of say as well is coaching for me really, goals can be because as well the other thing is, and I think this might get pushed onto us a lot in the childless community by society and maybe as a general message that if I don't have children, I've got to do something really amazing instead. I've really got to find this incredible life purpose. I've got to, whatever it is, you've got to do something so incredible. And really, the way that I see it is, you know, your life purpose can also just be you. You can be your own life purpose, living a life that you feel happy in. It could also be, I don't know, if you have a strong sense of social justice, your life purpose might be, working on social justice issues for other people. It can be anything at all. It doesn't have to be something that's like, by the way, also if you do end up running, 10 marathons and climbing 50 mountains and stuff, that's also incredible. But what I'm trying to say is, for me, I view coaching as doing anything, however big or small. It doesn't have to be something amazing. It can just be, a goal might just be wanting to just live a peaceful life. What does that look like? It doesn't have to be something that's really like crazy and action packed and loads of achievements. It doesn't, I think that that's a really important message because I think quite often as childless people, including myself, because I went through this as well, racking my brains. Oh, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I think just the basics can also be an achievement because what's basic for other people or what's deemed basic by society can be a really huge thing, especially when you're going through something like childlessness. My ultimate goal really is to live a life where I feel at peace and find things that I enjoy doing. I mean, that does sound generic, doesn't it? I've obviously done other things along the way. Um, but yes, just to say that coaching, I view it as however small or big, doesn't mean it's less or more important. Um, but don't take that pressure off yourself as well. Have to find something, I don't know. But yeah, I just thought I'd say that. And don't feel guilty, don't feel guilty or shamed into thinking you have to do something else. It can just be small things, which I'll go on to in a moment. So during the process as well, I think I mentioned this before, but there might be stumbling blocks. There might be times when you think, oh, I don't know why I'm doing this or whatever. And of course, always check in with yourself. You can always check in with yourself using, for example, that SMART framework as well. Because sometimes we might start something and think, and it might all make sense, but a month in, down the line or 2 months in, suddenly we have to reassess it and we might have to kind of shift what we're doing. So use that framework to check in with yourself every now and then to measure the experience. Um, so yeah, so those are a couple of tools you can use. I also wanted to show you a grounding tool as well, because during this experience, certain feelings can come up. We can get frustrated. We could just be having, a bad day or whatever it is. But one little tool, which is quite nice, and some of you may know this or have heard about it, but I just wanted to recap it. Some of you may not. So it is bilateral stimulation. Specifically, there is something which is called butterfly tapping. So I don't know if anyone has heard of that before, but we can do that together. Um, Bilateral stimulation is used in trauma therapy, EMDR, and it can be used to process traumas. It can also be used for something called installation. So I'll show you what it is and I'll explain what it is in layman's terms, because that's easier for me as well. I have an ADHD brain, and even though I know things, sometimes it's difficult for me to put it into words and recall information. So in EMDR and in bilateral stimulation, Um, bilateral stimulation is basically anything that activates both sides of your brain. So we can do this in different ways. There's bilateral music that you can listen to. You can just search for it on Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and it'll be music that goes from one ear to another ear. Okay. We can also do tapping. So this is actually called butterfly tapping because obviously that's meant to be like a butterfly. So you can actually do this with me now. We can do it guided together. So have a go, get your hands into position. Okay. So butterfly tapping, you just want to do kind of firm and steady, left, right, left, right, left, right. You might want to just close your eyes for a moment. Just do some nice breaths with it as well. Just making sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. So, and as you're exhaling, you might just be thinking, letting go. There's another type of butterfly tapping you can do as well. So you don't have to have your thumbs joined. You can actually just be like this. You can just try that and compare to see what feels more comfortable. You can also do it at the top of your shoulders as well. So just see what's comfortable, what works better. Whatever you're doing, it's still activating both sides of the brain. You can even do it like this. You might find that on different days, something else resonates better. You can even do it tapping on your temples. And you don't want to do it too fast. In EMDR therapy, when they're processing trauma, you do it very fast. Okay. They also do eye movement. So EMDR is actually stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, which is very good for trauma. When you're actually doing it for relaxation and calm, you do it slower. So firm and steady, firm and steady. Now, this does two things. When you're activating both sides of your brain, if you think that, and I know that there could be a little bit of, it's not as clear cut as this. We don't literally have like left and right, set in stone. But ultimately, what happens is it brings online both sides of your brain, the left side, the right side. The left side in general is to do with being, more um, to do with logic, reasoning and numbers and language and that kind of thing. The right side of the brain is known really, I suppose, for being more creative, more intuitive, more, engaged in imagination. Um, and in that sense, it can also hold things like traumatic memories or anxiety, fears, and that kind of thing. So if you think about having an overactive imagination when we're scared of things or when we've got, memories about something, it makes sense that it would be in that side of the brain because we can over imagine, all kinds of things and see things. So anyway, if you bring on both sides of the brain, um, they'll be communicating with each other. So your logic side of the brain will be communicating with the other side and being like, no, no, it's okay now. Don't worry that you're here and blah, blah, blah. So this butterfly tapping will help to ground you because it will bring on both sides of your brain, both sides of your brain online. It will activate your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the part of our nervous system that's responsible for rest and digest, as opposed to fight or flight as well. So it's a good little grounding tool to have. The other way that we can use it in coaching is that we can use it for installing positive feelings or beliefs or memories or visualizations. So what this does is, because both sides of the brain come online, you've got all sides of the brain there working and communicating with each other. So it will pick up and it will hold on to, and strengthen and reinforce any positive emotions, beliefs, visualizations that we bring up. So if we're consciously thinking, oh yeah, I've got this goal that I'm working on, for example, if you make a point to visualize it and think about it in every color, every detail, hopefully this should reinforce and strengthen these positive feelings around it, which in turn will motivate you more because you'll be able to see it more clearly. So I hope that makes sense. But that is a nice little grounding tool, and it's also a nice little tool for installation once you've got your coaching, your goals and things that you want to use. So that is a grounding tool. You can actually look, if you want to look that up more, you can just go onto YouTube and look up butterfly tapping or bilateral stimulation. But yeah, have a go at that. So yes, we can use that during the coaching journey as well. So it just gives it a little extra turbo boost. Because if you think about it, we might, for example, be thinking about a goal or something that we have. And if we're in a state of anxiety or fear, we may or may not realize it. It might be more difficult to think about this positive state. So if we actually then think about it instead, engaging in a grounding tool, which is able to bring us into rest and digest, our mind is more open to, to this kind of, positive emotions, positive visualizations. So that's our grounding tool. We've looked at two coaching tools, SMART and the Wheel of Life, and I wanted to just have a look and touch on possibly three areas that could be relevant to childlessness. And these are specifically identity, which can be greatly impacted, of course, when it comes to childlessness, because we might think, if I'm not a parent, who am I? Especially if we haven't found community yet, we don't even have maybe a sense of belonging or who we are in this world. So identity is a really big one. The other ones are life purpose. Again, just to recap on what I was saying before, I don't mean that it has to be, this wow, like overachieving. Again, achievements are amazing as well. But I'm just talking about general, life purpose of some description, and also self-worth. So there's so many areas to look at. There's so many goals that we can set. But I just wanted to touch on these three areas because these three areas are quite healing, and there's definitely coaching that we can do on these three areas. So the first one, really, I suppose, identity. Just to say about identity, when we've gone through something like childlessness, yes, we might be unsure about our identity, or even just going through any type of, big life experience, like something that's also traumatic. We just might lose a sense of who am I, what do I like, and what am I doing here, type of thing. So something that's really important for identity is, I think, to reconnect as well with things that you obviously, I know it sounds maybe obvious, but connecting with things that you enjoy doing. So I think it's just, making sure that we are being mindful about little glimmers of things that we enjoy. glimmers being the opposite to triggers. But glimmers in the sense of, I don't know, maybe it's something that we're reading through on Facebook or something, and we're like, oh, that looks interesting. Something that just kind of lights us up, even if it's just for a moment, or something that we know that we used to enjoy doing, and perhaps we just never did it anymore. Personally, for me, that was dancing. I'm completely malcoordinated. I don't have any coordination. Um, I enjoyed it, and I remember, as when I was much younger, I used to enjoy it, and it's something that I just never did anymore. And that's something which I do now, because that just reconnects me to my sense of self and my sense of identity. So yes, reconnecting to yourself, being mindful of glimmers, and just pursuing those glimmers and just seeing where they lead, really. Um, Also creative expression as well. Something else is sometimes you may have, maybe you used to enjoy writing poetry or painting or doing something creative. Um, that can help us to reconnect to our sense of identity. And also trying new things. If we do have a little glimmer of something, just exploring that and just saying, let's just see where this takes me, because you might discover new aspects to your identity that maybe you didn't know existed even. So that's just really a kind of general overview about identity and perhaps some ideas. The other thing is, of course, so important and connecting in community. You know, we don't have an obvious community that we belong to because in society, we don't just see like, adverts of, CNBC coffee meetup and things like that. So we can be led to believe that there's no community for us, but that's not true. There's such an enormous community for us, so big, and it's global. And belonging to a community, and also if you are new to this kind of childless experience as well, I would say you don't if you're not feeling kind of brave enough, let's say, to talk about your story and to connect with other people, even if it's just joining different Facebook groups and looking from a distance, creating some kind of sense of belonging where you can connect with community is so important because it also reinforces a sense of identity. So again, if you're thinking, we're thinking about different areas of our lives, if we're maybe socially we're thinking, oh, I don't really have many people that I've got stuff in common with and everything like that, that might be something you want to work on. And in that case, a goal might be, I'm going to search out some CNBC communities online and join some groups, and you can make that into very actionable, easy steps. So yeah, so working on connection and community is great. So that's identity. Very important. There's actually so much you can do around identity. But yes, the other one I wanted to just mention was self-worth. Now there's a few different things around this, and this again is so much that we can do. But I know it might seem first if you're kind of thinking that, oh, I'm not worthy. I mean, I'm not worthy is an underlying limiting belief, isn't it? That so many people have, and it can definitely come up in our experience as well. I don't particularly believe in, I hope this isn't going to annoy anyone, I don't particularly believe in affirmations. And what I mean by that is if you're thinking, oh, I'm not worthy, and then you just start randomly saying to yourself every morning, oh, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy. If you don't believe it, you're not just going to suddenly feel like, oh, yeah, I'm worthy. It has to be something that really resonates with you and something you can really feel. So in regards to self-worth, I'm using this as an example because it can be quite a common one. It can be quite an underlying theme. But if you were to take something like I'm not worthy, we want to find something that kind of, um, something that's a counter to this, and it would be I am worthy. But instead of just saying I am worthy, you might want to, for example, think about a phrase that resonates more with you. And it might be something like, I wrote it down before. Here we go. Yeah. You might want to think of, for example, a time when you did feel worthy in regards to maybe a specific situation. And it might be something random. It might be something like, I don't know, it might be a project that you worked on. It might be something that you did at work. It might be when you've supported a friend. I don't know. It could be, but just think of something very specific. And you might want to change this I am worthy into something that relates to a specific memory where you did feel valued or appreciated, you know? So it might be something that you change into, for example, I hold great value to others around me, including my friends, and you might want to think about that specific memory, or I know that I'm appreciated by my friends. So it's not the exact words of I am worthy, but it's along those lines, but it holds actually meaning and resonates with you. Once you've got your phrases, your actual tailored, personalized affirmations, going back to what we were saying about the butterfly tapping, you can think of this and you can tap these in. So as you're thinking about your specific memory, specific feelings and phrase, telling yourself that and basically installing it, bringing up both sides of your brain online to grab all these pieces of information like this belief, these positive feelings, these emotions, just to kind of strengthen those feelings. So affirmations, I think, make them personal to yourself, and find ones that yeah, are really tailored. So that's one thing that you can do for affirmations. Something else, you can write a letter to yourself, but you could maybe start with 50 reasons of why you are worthy. You might not want to use the word worthy because it might not resonate with you. It might be appreciated, valued, worthy of love, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be a letter to yourself. Some people don't really like that. It could just be a list. You could just call it a list, um, and start writing these reasons. And it can be anything. It can be absolutely anything. It can be because you love your pets, because you love your family, because you've got a lot of love to give, because whatever it is. I mean, there's so many, but start writing a list. Start with trying to think of 50 reasons. Once you reach 50, reach 100, go up to 100 and just keep going with it. So you've got a whole list. What you can then do with that list, it just serves as a reminder. You can dig it out and read it. You can dig it out and read it while you're doing the tapping, even just to kind of turbo boost it a bit. But it's quite nice to have a visual representation of all the reasons of why you are worthy. So yes, do a letter or a list because that's quite a nice one that you can do. Something else which is really good, I think I've put this under self-worth because I think it's something that gives us confidence, maybe. It's boundary setting, you know, um, and specifically about how to answer questions. We get so many questions or comments, don't we, as childless people? Why don't you have kids? Or at least you've got loads of free time and all this, all of that kind of stuff. I do believe that I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list to watch and catch up, but there are also resources, and it has been discussed this week as well, about how to answer these types of comments and things, which is so important because it can also that can be an obstacle for us when we want to go out and socialize and things like that. So again, you could, self-guide yourself through this process, as it were. Write down the questions and the comments that you hate, those ones where you just think, oh God, so annoying. And then, take the time to literally brainstorm these things, brainstorm your answers, brainstorm a few different answers, and then I know it sounds cheesy. This is what they say. Oh, practice in the mirror. You don't have to practice in the mirror, but do say it out aloud. There's such a power in our voice, having our voices, feeling comfortable in our skin and feeling comfortable with what we're saying. But yeah, brainstorm your answers, brainstorm what you feel comfortable with. Is it going to be a humorous approach? Is it just going to be like, oh, I just don't? Is it going to be like, oh, well, why do you have kids? I don't know, whatever it is, think of what your answers are and, prepare with another list. I do like a list, write down and kind of determine what your answers could be to all of these, questions and comments, empower yourself with answers that you can give in these kinds of situations. See, I didn't have a comment there. Someone came into the room. I'm actually in a hired space. There is a note on the door. But I didn't have an answer ready. I should have done before I started the webinar. So yeah, that's something else that you can do then, working on boundary setting and practicing it and feeling confident and assertive. And maybe it takes time. It's not, magic fix. Sometimes we don't feel confident saying those things, but at least we're equipped to, you know, in those situations. So that's self-worth. The last one really that I wanted to address is creating really sense of purpose. And again, just going back to what I was saying at the very beginning, life purpose, it can be life purpose can even just be living your life. My life purpose is to make sure that that I'm working towards feeling peaceful. That can be a life purpose. It doesn't have to be, all of these incredible, achievements. They are incredible too, not to minimize that. Whatever it is okay. But something that we can do perhaps, thinking about life purpose, the sense of purpose even, is working on, let's say, rituals and routines and traditions. Something that we, again, living in this, pronatalist society, living in a society where so many traditions and, routines are based around families and things, it can feel a bit like, just feel a bit like not much going on. I don't feel like I'm in any kind of, can feel little bit like an outsider, or that we're just going to work, or whatever it is. So creating a sense of purpose, I would just an idea, find yourself some new little routines or rituals. And this could be anything. This could be, a morning ritual where you make a cup of tea and you choose a word for the day to set an intention. And just while you're drinking your tea, you might just think about, what does this look like today? Today, my word for today, the intention is empowered. Okay. And while you're having your cup of tea, it might be, I don't know, you might want to call it, you know, tea and intention setting, or whatever it is. It's quite fun to name these rituals as well. But while you're having your cup of tea, you might choose your word and then think about empowered. Okay, what does that look like today? Oh, well, that looks like, if anyone asks me one of these questions, I'm going to be, feel empowered with how I'm going to answer. Or maybe your word for the day is going to be relax. And you're going to think, okay, how am I going to do that today? I know this evening I'm going to, treat myself to a bath. I don't know, whatever it is, I'm going to go for a walk, whatever it is. So you might want to have, like, let's say, a little morning routine, sorry, a little morning ritual, which may become a routine, where you set your intention for the day, you choose a word. It might be that you have a morning routine when I don't know, you listen to a new song of an album while you have a cup of tea, something like that. It can be absolutely anything at all. You might want to do full moon rituals if you're into the night sky. Full moon is usually a good time for letting go. So, for example, a full moon ritual could be that you have, again, another list. Lists are always good. You might have a list of things that you would like to let go of, and then when the full moon comes up, you might sit there with your cup of tea, your G&T, whatever it is, and you might just, be thinking about letting go and read your list to the moon, or whatever it is. New moon is a good time for renewal, thinking about new ventures or new ideas, quite creative. So you might want to have a ritual around that. You might want to have a sleep routine as well. I don't know. If your sleep hygiene isn't that great, or whatever it is. So finding little rituals that you can incorporate into your day can also give us a sense of purpose. We might begin to look forward to them. It might give us a reason to be like, we can't wait to get up tomorrow and, listen to that new song, or read a page from this book while I have my tea or coffee, or whatever it is. There's lots of different little rituals that we can do to give us a sense of purpose. Um, Creating new, traditions as well. So, actively thinking, brainstorming by yourself, what new traditions, what traditions am I going to start? So, for example, I can't play tennis. I do, for some reason, I don't mind watching the Wimbledon final. So it's become, a tradition now that I've created, and it's an adult tradition where I have my friends, have a couple of friends, and we watch the Wimbledon final, and we'll have, like, a drink, and we'll do all the kind of, strawberries and all the rest of it. I'm not really a tennis person, but that's somehow become like a tradition. Um, Another one could be, reclaiming um, family type traditions, even like Halloween. Maybe you're going to have some friends over and do, start like a yearly reclaiming. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be Halloween. It could just be a random date where, for example, I don't know, you just create an anniversary of something or whatever. So thinking about, new traditions you can create, rituals that you can do, all of these little things give us a sense of purpose, hopefully. And also through doing these things, we might discover other things that we like and just, go with it and see what happens. Um, so that's that. I think I'm going to tie that up there. I could obviously speak all day. I always think that I'm going to underspeak and then I end up over speaking, but I'm going to tie that up there because it's 10 to. But yeah, just to recap, really, I hope in some way, something here has been useful. But yeah, just looking at ideas of, tools that you can use, just to recap, tools that you can use for self-coaching, which is this wheel of life and this SMART framework. And those are two huge fundamental tools that you can get going with things. As I mentioned, I will try to put a little link in my bio or with the resources, but you can also Google them and just download some templates, one that works for you. Grounding tool that we looked at, which is the butterfly tapping. It doesn't have to be butterfly tapping. You might also find bilateral stimulation music, which you can also listen to on headphones. You can go for a walk. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you're not feeling a bit down or a bit anxious. Go for a walk. And then, people think, oh God, that's really unhelpful advice. Actually, it's not, because when you understand then about bilateral stimulation, it helps your brain go. So that can be anything that helps both sides of your brain. Use that as a grounding tool. And then the other things that we looked at were different areas of our lives that might impact us in the context of childlessness. So I hope that that's some ideas for you. I don't know if anyone's made any notes or if there's any burning questions. But hopefully some of that could be useful. I've got some questions here. Let's see. Does EMDR or other bilateral stimulation therapy differ for women versus men? So I don't actually know the answer to this. What I will say about EMDR is there's so much, it's a relatively new, it's not new-ish, it's been around 30 years or so, but there's still so much research being conducted, and I'm sure there is research being done about that. So there's nothing evidently at the moment, but there could be some things. But there's nothing that's been formalized, but it's something really interesting to look into anyway. So that's not really an answer, Kathy, sorry, but it is kind of ongoing research in this area. So it would be interesting to do some research on that. Minutes for beginning with visualization. Well, everyone is different. So some people have very active brains as well. Some people are able to, it also depends on how used to meditating and things you are as well. Some people might start with, 30 seconds, go up to 60 seconds, go up to a minute because they just find it really hard to visualize. Some people might just be able to straight away go into 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. So I would honestly just say, play around with it at the beginning and see how long you can, try it for a minute. If it's going fine, keep going. Don't over force yourself to the point where you think, oh, I can't be bothered to do this. You want to kind of keep it exciting, as it were. So what you want to be doing when you're visualizing, let's say you've got a goal in mind. You want to try to imagine this goal, but you really want to try and imagine it in every single detail. So every vivid, try to make it very vivid in color. Try to think, what does this look like? How's this going to look like when I've achieved this goal? What am I going to look like? What am I going to be doing? What does this look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? If there was music playing, what would that sound like? So you can really play around with it and make it as vivid as you can. That might take some building up to. So there's no set answer, but I would just say have a play around with it and then increase it little by little, if you're a beginner to it. The more you practice it, the easier it'll be to get up as well and build on it because you'll start becoming really familiar with the scene, which is really nice. And also when you're visualizing, tap it in because your brain, as we said, comes online and it will grab all those pieces of information and strengthen those visualizations. How do you stop internal chatter? Yes, internal chatter is difficult, isn't it? Well, internal chatter. There's lots of things you can do for internal chatter. It would be talking back to the chatter. So there's lots of things you can do in NLP. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. Um, Language is obviously powerful. Now, internal chatter, there's lots of different things you can do, including EMDR therapy. Um, to desensitize the internal chatter. This is going to be a long answer, so I'm only going to cover this briefly. But yes, you can use different therapies like that. You can also talk back to the chatter. You can find, yeah, you can talk back to the chatter in things like Mickey Mouse voices and stuff like this to minimize, desensitize the chatter. You can find phrases because sometimes that chatter, they'll be saying the same thing. So a bit like the boundary setting, you can do boundary setting with your own internal chatter and, you know, uh, pick definitive like answers of how am I going to answer this the next time this comes up, you know? And it might be silly things, but it might be things that resonate with you too, like, oh, shut up, or okay, that's fine. So yeah, that might happen. If it does, I'll deal with it. It could be anything from being like talking back to it in an accent. This is all NLP, by the way. Um, to talking to it like a small child, I don't want to say, but your younger self or whatever it is. So there are lots of different ways you can handle that, and it's about trying to find something that works for you. Um, yes. So where to begin? Yes. Well, talking about, yeah, I can see about journaling and a lot of resistance about writing about your life. So any suggestions on how to just begin? Yeah, I think with anything, beginning sometimes is so hard. We need to just begin. So I think sometimes when things are so overwhelming, we it's quite easy to visualize this big overwhelming thing and we don't know where to start. Sometimes I know that this sounds really basic, but sometimes we just need to start and just say, right, I'm just going to literally do 1 minute or while I have this cup of tea and just write down some thoughts. And those thoughts might even be, I'm not even sure where to start, but this is what happened today and this is how I feel about it, you know? And then that could lead us and kind of break that and lead us into other areas. Sometimes when we start something, if we just start, we can find ourselves, a few hours later. The other thing is about writing. If it's not writing, if you've got like on a laptop or a phone or something like this, if you've got talk to text, you can do talk to text as well. It doesn't have to be writing. And again, just start talking and see where it leads you. Set a time limit as well, because, just say, I'm going to just talk for 3 minutes about how I'm feeling. And even if that feeling is not knowing what to do or what to say or how to begin, it might just be that. Um, yes, starting would be good. Um, Also, looking at the wheel of life, it could feel overwhelming. Yes, in that case, you could just start, just pick one and just begin with it, and then when you do, you might just think, actually, I don't want to be doing this. Let me pick another one. If it's too much to kind of consider and you've got too many areas there, just be like, close your eyes and just pick one and just start at random just to get it flowing, get beginning. Um, Chronic pain. Okay. So thank you for that question. So it has programs with the left and then right side. Can that have the same effect as bilateral stimulation? So I'm not sure of the answer to this, Kathy. It could do, but I don't want to say because I don't know about these devices. So I don't want to give any incorrect information. Um, However, what I will say is that bilateral stimulation can work as well for pain. It can actually be really good. It can be really effective for pain. It can work for chronic pain. It can also work for things like allergies and things like this. So EMDR is not just for processing trauma, and also trauma can be expressed biologically, as it were, through our body. So yes, EMDR, I don't want to comment about the EMS device, but EMDR can be really good for pain. So something to explore, perhaps. Have a little research about it and maybe give it a go. But yes, there's definitely research that helps with pain management as well, and that kind of thing. Okay, so thank you so much for your questions. And thank you for joining today. I think that brings us to a close with 2 minutes to go. So I will wrap this up now. Um, and yes, I don't know. I don't want to say see you soon because I haven't seen you, but hope to see you soon at some point. Enjoy the rest of the webinars, enjoy the rest of World Childless Week. And I know that Stephanie always says this as well, but World Childless Week is not just here for the week, it is here for you throughout the year. Um, so just a huge thank you to everyone for attending, for participating, for holding webinars, and obviously as well to Stephanie, who works throughout the year and around the clock, especially at this time of year, to put all of this together for us, which is such an incredible resource and space to bring us all together. So thank you so much. I am also very proud and honoured to be World Childless Week Ambassador. So thanks so much. But we will close this here. So Stephanie, please feel free to stop recording and wishing everyone a good rest of your weekend.